Paramedics arrived at a home in Cuero, Texas, where a woman had been shot once in the head. Supposedly, she committed suicide. However, she was minutes away from having packed up her children in a trailer filled with their belongings to move back to her family in Texas. This is the case of Pamela Shelley. Hello everyone. So real quick before I jump into today's case, I just wanted to let you guys know that from now on I will be posting 3 times a week just like I have at this point this week. So on Mondays, every other Monday will be a true crime book review. Every other Monday that's not a book review is going to be a research with me video where I kind of walk you guys through the process of me researching some of these cases. I think it's going to be really interesting, so let me know what you guys think this upcoming Monday about my first Research With Me video. On Wednesdays, I will be continuing to do unsolved cases that need more attention. And then on Fridays, what I'm now doing is either solved cases or cases that are popular, cases that a lot of people want to hear about, are interested in hearing about because they already know about them. These are cases that don't really need more attention, cases that have gotten plenty of attention already, which is why I'm separating them, even though they might be unsolved, from my cases on Wednesdays, because those are cases that I feel need more attention because they haven't gotten enough attention already in the media and from people. So that is what my new schedule is going to be like, and I am so excited to bring you today's case because today I am talking about a solved case. This is the first solved case that I am talking about on my channel, and this is the case of Pamela Shelley. So on January 6th, 2001, Pamela Shelley had finished packing up a trailer with her belongings and her children's belongings. She had 2 children, a daughter who was 12 at the time and a son who was 9. Now, Pamela had gone into the bathroom in the home that she was living in with her boyfriend, Ronnie Hendrick, and she was putting on makeup before they were about to get into the trailer and leave to move back to her family in Arkansas. However, there was suddenly a gunshot that rang out throughout the house, and Kayla, Pamela's daughter, ran to the bathroom to see her mom laying on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head, bleeding profusely. Ronnie called 911 and paramedics arrived. He actually got into the ambulance with them when they went to take Pamela to a hospital to help direct them through a bunch of the back roads because he lived in a very, very rural area, and because she was in such critical condition, they were trying to get there the fastest route possible. So Ronnie was actually not at the scene when police arrived. So when police arrived, the only people there were Pamela's children, who were trying to tell the officers about how something was wrong here. Their mom wouldn't have done this to herself. It doesn't make sense. However, the other people at the house were Ronnie's family. He had a brother, and then another person who it was kind of confusing as to whether this person was a friend or a brother, but there was a brother and another man there. And then there was also Ronnie's mom. And all of the adults that were at this house were telling police that Pamela had been suicidal. She had been talking about suicide. She'd been talking about maybe killing herself. And they tried to tell the police that Pamela was really upset because she had to move back to Arkansas. Otherwise, she was going to lose her children, that they would be taken away from her. So she must have been so distraught that she decided to kill herself, which, of course, looking back, that doesn't make any sense because if she were killing herself, she would be ensuring that she wouldn't be able to see her children ever again. So if she were upset about her children possibly being taken away from her, then it doesn't make sense that she would kill herself and ensure that she couldn't see them at all ever again. And this, of course, was something that could have been easily ruled out with just a quick investigation, but it was quickly ruled in this case that Pamela had committed suicide. And one of the reasons they thought this was because of what Ronnie's family had been saying. Another reason they thought this was because the gunshot was close range. The gun had been right up against her temple, apparently, and they decided that this was the obvious makings of a, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. So they quickly ruled it a suicide and the case was closed, but they just wouldn't listen to Pamela's daughter. She tried telling them over and over again that this wasn't possible, that her mom wouldn't have killed herself, that they were literally minutes away from leaving to move to Texas to get away from her boyfriend because her boyfriend, Ronnie, was abusive. Unfortunately, because there were no friends or family of Pamela's there and it was only her two, juvenile children, nobody believed the kids and no one else was there to be an adult and to speak out for Pamela in this case before it was already closed. So it was just over a decade later that Officer Carl Bowen, he reopened this case. Now, Carl had been a responding officer to the scene the day that Pamela was shot, but he was not actually involved in the investigation of the case. He had only been a responding officer. However, he strongly felt that justice hadn't been served, that something was wrong there, and that the suicide did not make sense. So he reopened the case, and with the help of Kayla, he was able to come up with a lot of information. Of course, it was not only the two of them that were investigating this case. What ended up happening is that Carl got a show that was filming for its premiere episode to get involved in the case. So they actually ended up taking on Pamela Shelley's case as their very first episode of the show, and the show is called Cold Justice. So season 1, episode 1 was the case of Pamela Shelley, and the show had two investigators that came in and they helped a lot with this case. They helped Carl and Kayla a lot through the process of trying to determine what had happened, why what happened had happened, and how they could prove that this wasn't a suicide. So Carl re-interviewed the family members. He got a lot of conflicting stories. There was also the brother who tried to tell him that the game warden had been a responding officer the day that Pamela had died, and that he had taken Ronnie aside at the scene of the crime and that he had swabbed Ronnie's hands for GSR, which is gunshot residue, and he had told Ronnie then and there that there was such little gunshot residue on his hands that it probably just rubbed off on him when he tried to perform CPR on Pamela. Now, let's break this down because it's kind of interesting. First off, they never once tested Pamela's hands for gunshot residue. Another thing is that they would not have been able to perform that test in the field and to have given Ronnie the results of that test right away, the way that his brother claims they did. As well, there was no evidence whatsoever that CPR had been performed on Pamela in any way before paramedics arrived. When the paramedics got there, they said that there was no evidence that anyone had tried CPR, that anyone had tried to revive her at all. There was also not blood on anybody's clothing at the house, which means that because of how much Pamela was bleeding and because of the way that the brother described that she would bleed more and more every time that Ronnie tried to perform CPR on her, it just didn't make sense that Ronnie wouldn't have blood on his clothing or on his hands or on, any part of him, basically. One of the things that the show did is that they had Kayla go with them to the house where her mother had been shot, and she described to them the scene. She described how her mother looked, how the gunshot wound was, where her mother was lying, everything about the scene that day she described to them. And this was really, really difficult to watch because you can just tell how extremely painful it is for her to have to relive this, but it also is inspiring because it shows you just how much she was determined to do whatever she had to find justice for her mom, because she knew that her mom hadn't committed suicide, and she knew that Ronnie must have had something to do with this. So eventually they took this case and all the information that they had gathered, and they took it to the district attorney, and they asked him to review the case and to take it to a grand jury. The district attorney took his time on this. There's an entire article about his experience with the show, with the case, and what helped him make his decision to take it to a grand jury, as well as his feelings on how the show affected the trial later on, which I will get to in a minute. But The district attorney said that the thing that really convinced him to take this case to a grand jury was not what the show had helped bring to light. It was actually something that Carl Bowen had found on his own before the show had got involved. And this was that he had talked to Pamela's ex-husband, Jesse, and he had explained that he had actually spoken to Pamela the day that she died, and that they had been planning to get back together, and that he knew that she was leaving Ronnie because he was abusive towards her. And he said that what happened is that while they were on the phone, Ronnie forced the phone out of Pamela's hands, and he told Jesse that the only way he would be seeing Pamela again is in a pine box, basically threatening that he wasn't going to see her unless she was dead, because Ronnie wouldn't let her go, basically. It's very telling information. It definitely spoke a lot to his attitude towards Pamela, how abusive he was, and what his intentions were that very day. Because mind you, this phone call happened the day that Pamela died, the day that she was shot by Ronnie. So the district attorney took this case to a grand jury. They did indict Ronnie, and there was a trial set for about mid-September of 2013. However, the show Cold Justice decided that they were airing the first episode of the show on September 3rd of 2013. And this caused a lot of worry for everyone involved in the case, because they felt that if the show aired and if people were watching it, then they would be biased in their opinions towards Ronnie by the time people could be selected as jurors. And this is actually exactly what happened, because the show aired, because after Carl had called producers and asked them to postpone it 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, and to air a different episode first, and they said no. The juror pool for this trial was so contaminated with biased opinions based off of what the show presented that they were unable to form a complete jury, and this led them to declare a mistrial. So what they were planning to do is to move the venue of the trial and to set a different date, and they were going to try to select a jury from a different area, so that it would be a fair jury, which is something that is required by law here in the United States. And they were going to just keep doing this until they found a jury that they could use for the case. Thankfully, however, even though the Cold Justice show nearly cost them any chance of an actual conviction in this case, Ronnie did decide to confess to the case the day after the trial was supposed to have happened. He confessed to having killed Pamela, and he was convicted, and he received 22 years in prison. Unfortunately, if they had gone through the trial and they were able to convict him through the trial, he probably would have been given a life sentence, or a sentence long enough that he would have likely been dead before he could have been released from prison. So it's unfortunate that he only got 22 years for, deciding that he was just going to kill his girlfriend. And I think that that's awful, but thankfully, the family found justice in this case, even though the show itself almost cost them that justice. They were thankfully able to find justice for Pamela Shelley. And I think that this is a really good example of not only how helpful shows can be in helping you to investigate, to get information out there, to get the public educated about these cases, but it can also be very detrimental if these episodes are airing during an open investigation, or if they're airing literally like right before a trial for this case happens. It literally almost cost them a conviction, and I think that that's something that is very, very disturbing. I think that the producers of the show hopefully would have felt bad for nearly costing them a conviction, but apparently they cared more about getting their show out there than helping to actually solve this particular case. And I do want to specify that my opinion of that is that I feel that's what was important to the producers. After watching the show, I feel that that's definitely not how the people who were the investigators on that show, who actually physically helped with the case, I don't feel that they would have felt that way. They probably would have agreed that it was really bad timing, and that they probably would have agreed that the episode should be aired in a different order so that that case wouldn't be challenged in any way because of the airing of that episode. This was definitely an interesting case. I am definitely excited to have been able to bring you a case that is solved. It's definitely a kind of breath of fresh air because there is an answer in this case. There was justice served, and it took a long time to get there, but they got there eventually, and that's what's important. So like I said, from now on, every Friday, I will be posting a video that is either a solved case or a case that is particularly popular, a case that doesn't necessarily need attention, but people enjoy hearing about because it's a case that interests them. So definitely check back again next Friday for another case like this, and I will see you guys again on Monday for a research with me video. It's something brand new that I'm doing, and I am really interested to see what you guys think of it. So go ahead and let me know on Monday what you think of that new video, and if you guys like it, I will keep doing those every other Monday in addition to the true crime book reviews. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please hit that fancy little subscribe button down below. If you guys want notifications of my videos, make sure that you guys click the bell icon as well to be notified when a new video goes up. If you subscribe to the channel, you guys will definitely be able to see all of my future videos on unsolved cases, on true crime books, on how I do my research, on solved cases, popular cases, all kinds of things. So make sure that you guys subscribe if you guys have enjoyed this video or any of my previous videos. And like I said, I will see you on Monday for another new video. Bye everyone.